Mr. Ryan,
Freddie,
it's an absolute pleasure and an honor to have you here. Thank you very much for coming.
thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Where are you coming from?
New York.
New York. So that's all right. We have some direct fans, New York fans. That's good. That's good. So it was a direct flight. It wasn't.
No, so actually I'm on a trip that's kind of taking me to 7 cities and 4 countries in 3 weeks.
Where have you been?
SF and LA.
And now where are you going?
New York for a day, then Israel, Turkey, and Sweden.
That's really interesting. All right, let's start with the question so that we can understand why he's traveling around so much. You've gone from producing movies, you made a film that debuted at Sundance, you also helped thousands of kids to learn how to code from zero. And also you had something going on with the White House, the good White House, the former one.
Yes, the good one.
So can you tell us a little bit more about how you went from producing films to teaching kids how to code?
Sure. So I have a really diverse background. I went to USC, I grew up in LA, started my first company in college doing commercials and music videos for local bands. After college, I had a chance to join a production company or produce a small film. I produced a small film with a bunch of friends. We didn't know what we were doing. We broke tons of laws, but fortunately it all worked out and we got into Sundance. From there, I ended up producing another film from a studio and realized that the film industry was shrinking and that the model made no sense at all. And so I decided to move to tech, where at least there's some sense in the model.
Which is a totally normal pivot, going from doing films to doing technology.
Yes, but actually what was unique is I was brought into a consultancy where they wanted to try a new type of product development where they wanted one designer and one person to support them as a producer. So basically I was producing products within the company as we were consulting for companies around the world. So it seems weird, but actually the skill set fit really nicely. And so that allowed me to move up to the Bay Area, worked on that for a few years, and then while I was living in the Bay Area, I became involved with the Obama campaign, doing the young professional outreach portion of the campaign. And I had never been politically active. I had never thought that anyone could have an impact just on their own, but he just spoke to me as a candidate, and so I just jumped in and started Generation Obama San Francisco, and so we engaged all the young politicals in the Bay Area, and it was a really transformative experience. It really made me focus more on career impact and how to help others. And so after the campaign, I moved to DC like a lot of people, and I fortunately had an opportunity to work for the White House for 6 months. It was a very low-level position, but it was an amazing experience being there on ground zero and seeing great people doing amazing work and struggle. And so that wanted me to continue to do good. I joined a nonprofit. Unfortunately, I saw how broken the nonprofit system was, and that motivated me to want to learn to code because I don't have a technical background. And
you didn't know how to program back then?
No, I did not. And so this is before Learn to Code schools existed. This is before the boot camps. This is 2010. This is before it was a real conversation. And I looked for resources to learn, and there was nothing that I really found that would speak to me, that was hands-on, project-based, that would engage me in the way I wanted to. And so I was digging into that a little bit, and I've also mentored youth throughout my life, from high school to college to after. And in DC, I was working with youth, and it dawned on me that if I had trouble finding these resources, these students didn't even have a chance. And so for me, it just didn't make sense, because we can't control what we're born into, but we all deserve the same opportunity. And so there were no organizations teaching code, and so I saw that as a social injustice, and so I actually quit my job and started Code Now full-time in 2011.
So that was your nonprofit, Code Now?
Yes.
And Code Now, for those that don't know, was a nonprofit that taught 2,500 students, 2,500 students, how to code. Of those, 40% of them went to study careers related to computer science. Is that right?
Correct. And also, the key is 80% of them had never written a line of code before. So it's not like we're going after kids that are already knowing what they're doing. These kids had never had a chance to program, and it's like playing a sport or an instrument. Like, once you find that you love it, you just go with it. And so that's what we did with these students.
That's really cool. So because of your work with Code Now, you have a unique insight into not only the future of programming, but the future of the jobs in tech. So I was wondering, we talk a lot about the future here in these conferences, in PlatziConf, in the courses. But what's the biggest misunderstanding? What's the most common misunderstanding that you see that people make about how we're going to learn and prepare for the future?
Sure. I mean, our current university system is broken. We get a degree, we expect a job, and then we expect to be done. But that's not how today works. I mean, we need to function like technology itself, where it's constantly iterating and growing. You look at Moore's Law, where the number of transistors in a piece of software doubles every 2 years. We need to create skills that adapt like that, and that's where we actually need to focus more on lifelong learning. You look at developers do an amazing job at that, but also look at doctors, look at attorneys. They're always gathering knowledge. And with the rate of technology, we need to always look at ways for us to gather knowledge.
Something else that we've been talking about for a long time, for those that don't know, Ryan helped us a lot when we went through Y Combinator. Before we went to Y Combinator, Ryan was the one mentoring us, helping us get the most out of the program, or even getting in, because we talked to you before the interview, I remember, and then after the interview. So I know that you have strong opinions about lifelong learning, which is something that we also have been hearing today a lot. Lifelong learning, the idea of never stopping. And it doesn't mean never stopping to learn just hobbies or common topics, but actually professional skills that improve and advance your career. And because we also are extremely focused on programming, sometimes I think that we lose sight of the other kind of jobs that also have lifelong learning. So besides programming, which other careers do you see that actually shine at lifelong learning?
Yeah, I mean, so doctors and attorneys are there. You look at researchers, those are the key ones that focus on lifelong learning, along with developers.
What do doctors do to lifelong learn?
I mean, there's always new studies. There's always new things coming up. They read, they write papers, they are involved in conferences, so they're always trying to progress the field. And I mean, it moves so quickly, like with the medical system, that you need to be up to date or you could kill someone.
Let's leave that hanging around for a while. Also with lawyers, you have this issue in which if they lose a lawsuit and it goes to the Supreme Court, it may absolutely change the field.
Yes.
So they need to be learning everything.
Exactly.
How do they do that? Like, do they have a journal, a newspaper?
Well, you look at law, there are so many different law books and papers and journals and reviews that for every single case they need to learn something new to be able to present facts and argue it. And so it's built into what they do. And so that's a big part of their approach, is always looking for new knowledge to support their arguments. I mean, it's the same thing with us, is we should always look for new knowledge to support our goals. Like, what do you want to achieve and what can help get you there?
So we normally try to be as positive as possible, which is, I think, something good for Platzi. But just for a little bit, I would love to go to the negative side of things. What do you think was going to be the worst case scenario for those that don't like lifelong learning? What do you think is the worst thing that can happen for those that just don't want to continue learning?
Sure. I mean, so one good example is look at what's going on right now with everything is being automated. So in 5 to 7 years in the US, fast food workers, truck drivers, Uber drivers are going to be automated, maybe not out of jobs, but out of less jobs. And so what happens to those people if they don't develop their skills? They become unemployed. What happens to us if you're like you're a mechanic and you don't really pick up skills at once cars change to autonomous? Then you're losing jobs. And so it's really like, where do you want to be? Like, do you want to be struggling? Do you want to try and find a fit? Or do you want more opportunity? Because one of the things that people don't realize is the jobs that some of you will have don't exist right now. Probably half of you will be in a job in the next 5 to 10 years that don't exist right now. That's how quickly things move. And so if you're not willing to learn to that, you're going to miss out on those jobs. Because some jobs are going away, but new jobs are coming back. And so we really need to think about, like, what are transferable skills for those new jobs?
What do you mean transferable skills? Like, that's a very American thing.
Yeah, but like, okay. So one thing that I've been playing with is Like if you're a truck driver, you're not going to learn to code most likely if you're a truck driver, the majority. I'm sure
Maybe.
there's some amazing people,
probably not.
but the majority won't. But what's something they could do? Maybe drone dispatcher. That's something that we don't think about that isn't there. There's autonomous car repair, things like that. And so those are skills that they already have some type of understanding, and it's a linear move towards.
Okay, so it's basically, even if you have something that is perceived as a basic job, it's the idea of understanding what skills that you right now possess can transfer to a job in the new industry. And then, from what you lack, you have to learn.
Exactly.
How do you think that people like truck drivers are going to learn? Like, technically speaking, like, what are they going to do?
I mean, out of necessity. You'd be surprised what people are willing to do to be able to better themselves and support their family.
Yeah,
people just find a way to solve their problem. And so people will get motivated. But that's also where technology comes in. So one field that I've started to really dig into is immersive technology. So AR and VR and training, the future of work. So what does it look like? And I think these are tremendous tools for training right now. And that's one of the biggest industries in VR right now is B2B training.
So that's something else that I wanted to talk to you. Let's say that we at Platzi succeed. And we convince a lot of people, especially in the tech industry, to lifelong learn, to learn forever, to continue learning, to never stop. But then, what's gonna go beyond? Right now, the frontier seems to be we need to continue learning. We need to learn how to build technology, not only use it, and afterwards, what's the future of education? What's the thing that's beyond the horizon? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, first off, everyone in this room has my respect, because if you're here and if you're part of Platzi, you're focused on lifelong learning. Because Platzi's doing a really great job of creating a gateway to opportunity. And I'm sure as skills change, they're able to easily change, but they're essentially a platform that anyone can engage, and it's democratized learning. And so that's what I think is really powerful. As far as jobs of the future, I mean, that's where I think technology comes in. It also starts with education. So our education system needs to change. Right now, the way classrooms are structured, the way we learn, it hasn't changed in the US in 150 years since the Industrial Revolution. There's something wrong with that. I mean, because we've obviously changed as individuals. Look at how all of you are learning online. Look at how we take in information. And so that's where I think VR really comes in. But also the really exciting part is when you start combining technologies. So when you have VR and AI and then biometrics, and you can eventually start tailoring learning to students into how they want to learn, and then also having those phenomenal teachers, instead of teaching class of 30, they're teaching class of 3,000. And so that's really, I think, where the power is. And then you have other new technologies being introduced. We don't know what's going to happen with them, but there's really cool potentials like Magic Leap. Also, Leap Motion just announced a really low-cost AR headset. And so all of these are cool tools that could create more access and opportunity.
Of those here at the audience, have you heard of Magic Leap? Can you raise your hand if you've heard of Magic Leap? That's like not a lot. Can you briefly describe what Magic Leap is?
Okay, so Magic Leap is a pair of glasses that's dealing with mixed reality. And so who here understands what augmented reality is?
Just raise your hand.
Okay.
Okay, most of you.
Great. But for those who don't, it's basically think of holograms. So you have a set of glasses on, augmented reality. In a AR experience, your hand will go through the microphone, okay? So it's a hologram. In MR, in the glasses, I will be able to hold the microphone, pick it up, move it. So it takes in physics. It's tactile. And so there's a lot of potential for that. And so from the future of work to training to how we interact with technology in general, that's what I'm excited about with the potential.
So how do you think we're going to have classrooms by 2022?
Yes, I mean, because that's right around the corner.
I mean, yeah, it's probably very hard to destroy them. They're already there.
And you've got unions, and you've got teachers, and you've got bureaucracies and systems. But I think the way that we approach school will change.
All right, let's pick something that we haven't talked about. Let's see. A profession that's really hard, and you normally only see it in college. You don't see blockchain in college?
Yeah, not yet.
All right, I got it. How do you think architecture or civil engineering will be transmitted, will be taught in 2022?
Well, 2022 is still right around the corner. I mean,
Yes, 4 years. That's why I picked it. It's not that far away. So in 4 years,
but ways that the technology can be applied.
what's the most optimistic version of 2022 for civil engineering and architecture in your mind?
For architecture, I would say being able to design your actual projects in VR hands-on, in AR. That, for me, would be amazing if you actually are able to, kind of like coding, like Scratch, if you're able to build AR, VR experiences for architecture.
What about civil engineering? Because civil engineering is the other one. Everybody says, I don't want to go through a bridge that was built by a civil engineer that learned online. Mm-hmm. So what do you think about that?
I mean, I think it will actually be effective because it'll allow them to build a better bridge. Because you'll actually be able to look at it, experience, walk around it. I mean, some of the technologies that are coming up right now, even on your phone for AR, are incredible, where you can actually dig in and actually experience it. And so imagine if someone's able to design an entire bridge and then walk through it and see it. And then
simulate it.
Yeah.
Immediately. Mm-hmm. I love it. And we won't die. Yeah, you can clap for the not die part. Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, good idea.
One last
question for you, Freddie.
All right.
What are you most optimistic about education in the next 5 years?
I think that we need to pay teachers better.
Yep.
There's one teacher here.
Come on, we all should clap.
Every time that we try to reform educational systems in Latin America, the countries stop because they go on a strike. They block the main highways, they block the main roads, and then everybody hates the teachers. But the truth is that they do it because they don't have the best possible conditions. Mexico, for example, is the country that works the hardest in the world. But that doesn't mean that they earn the most. It only means that you work the hardest. Japanese people work less than Mexicans per week. Korean people, South Korean people, work less than Mexicans per week, but they produce 10 times more. And it's not because you guys are not hard workers, on the opposite. It's because they are able to work smarter, because they pay their teachers a lot, and they focus on the highest possible quality of education. I think that if you combine an educational reform with paying teachers more, you are able to change a country. And I think that from Platzi's perspective, I hope that we are a significant part of that solution in the next 5 years.
That's great.
One last question, and let's make it very brief. We already talked about innovations that are mainstream. We know about AR, VR. We kind of get into immersive reality, or at least we saw Ready Player One at the movies. What innovation are you excited the most that is not mainstream, but that you think is inevitable?
So as I mentioned before, I don't think it's any one innovation. I think it's the combination. I mean, when you bring AR, VR, AI, and then even blockchain, I think there's so much potential. You think it's funny, but like blockchain's powerful because it's decentralized. There's a lot of things you can do. And so I'm excited to see where all of these move and how people actually come up with creative ways to implement them.
How can people contact you? If you want them to contact you, I'm not sure.
Yes, you can contact me on Twitter at Ryan C. So just RYNSEAS.
All right. Thank you very much. Please.
Thank you for having me.
Ryan Seashore.
Thank you. Sorry about that.